When I accidentally flew into a kind of crater, I saw airplanes that I had never seen before. I encountered humanoid creatures who were much more advanced than us. The president was informed, the intelligence agency captured me, and I was ordered to remain silent. These incredible entries from Richard Byrd's personal diary were kept classified for decades. However, the records came to light under mysterious circumstances, leading us straight into a frightening world that literally slumbers right beneath our feet. But how can an entire civilization hide underground? Can we trust the words of the renowned Rear Admiral? And most importantly, who or what is lurking in the shadows? Hidden worlds. At first glance, one might think that Richard Byrd was just a crackpot with an overly vivid imagination. Because, assuming there really is a highly advanced civilization underground, wouldn't it have been discovered in abundance in the past? Well, the surprising truth is, over time, countless underground cities have already been found. Let's think about Derinkuyu in Turkey, for example. Presumably built over 4,000 years ago, the hidden settlement could have once housed 50,000 people. And even though only a quarter of the original structure has been uncovered so far, and its exact origins remain a mystery, Derinkuyu impressively demonstrates one fact: giant structures actually lie dormant underground, remaining undiscovered for centuries. Just imagine, thousands of years ago, the creators managed, officially without the use of advanced technologies, to build an invisible city that left nothing to be desired. Whether it was residential areas, sleeping quarters, a monastery, a wine press, assembly and storage rooms, a place of worship, or a dungeon, Derinkuyu was on par with the above-ground counterparts in every way. Sealed off from the outside world with so-called rolling stone doors, the hidden complex had over 15,000 ingeniously designed ventilation shafts, which were also used for water transportation. In general, experts believe that this hidden world was created by the Hittites to serve as a secure refuge for persecuted groups. Alternatively, it was also possible that the underground city was built to withstand the region's extreme climate. While winters there are bitterly cold and snowy, the summers are scorchingly hot. The underground maintains consistent temperatures. However, anyone who believes that Derinkuyu is an absolute exception is mistaken. So far, over 30 such complexes have been uncovered, and that's just in the Cappadocia region of Turkey. The underground Egypt. From Turkey to ancient Egypt, it is known that the inhabitants of the Pharaoh's kingdom were also reputed to have built colossal structures underground, concealing incredible things. It is still rumored to this day that beneath the Sphinx lies a fully developed system of tunnels and chambers, including the legendary Hall of Records. According to this fascinating myth, beneath the paws of the Sphinx, there is an entrance to an overwhelming treasure trove of knowledge, recounting the story of an advanced, lost civilization. While drilling and seismic measurements have revealed the presence of some cavities beneath the famous statue, it is unknown whether they were artificially created or formed naturally. Whether we will ever unravel this mystery is highly questionable. The Egyptian Antiquities Authority has prohibited any further investigations, officially to protect the structure from damage. The Greek historian Herodotus is also said to have witnessed something in ancient Egypt that is now nothing more than a vague myth. Specifically, it refers to the Lost Labyrinth. This was said to be so magnificent and gigantic that it made the pyramids of Giza look like amateurish constructions. After walking through the above-ground part of the complex, Herodotus described the overwhelming courtyards, the connected walls, the artificially created lake, and the breathtaking sculptures as superhuman. Yet, the Greek historian only heard reports about the actual heart of the labyrinth, its underground part. Since this was where the coffins of the kings and the sacred crocodiles were located, the Egyptian guards denied Herodotus access. The Hollow Earth. Now, one could argue that the stories of Derinkuyu, the Hall of Records, and the Lost Labyrinth, while certainly exciting, differ significantly from the experiences Richard Byrd recorded in his diary. Setting aside the mind-boggling technologies and the bizarre inhabitants of the underworld, the question arises of how an entire civilization could fit into the interior of the Earth. Well, in more alternative circles, this point refers to a notion that has circulated for several centuries. In truth, our planet is hollow. Where official scientific models fall short, we are confronted with depictions that show us an Earth's interior consisting of concentric spheres. Each zone would have its own magnetic field, a stable atmosphere, and sun-like illumination. What is now nothing more than a far-fetched theory had a highly scientific approach in the past. When Edmund Halley noticed in the late 17th century that compass needles did not always point in the same direction, he was convinced that enormous cavities must exist in the Earth's interior. The observations simply could not be reconciled with the prevailing belief at the time that the Earth's interior consisted of solid materials. With the help of a certain Isaac Newton, Halley ultimately concluded that the underground must be 45% hollow. After this idea was repeatedly revisited and earnestly discussed in the following decades, it reached its peak in the early 19th century. This was largely due to the high-profile work of John Cleves Symmes Jr., a former captain in the U.S. Army. He presented Halley's hollow Earth theory as his own and expanded on it in some areas. According to him, the Earth's interior would not only be adorned by a vast void, but this hidden region would also be accessible and even habitable. Symmes located the entrances to the underworld at the still unexplored poles. Although this legendary access has no scientific basis, it gained significant popularity among the general public. Elevated to the status of the Newton of America, Symmes also captivated some professional researchers, including archaeologists James McBride and Jeremiah N. Reynolds. The latter managed to persuade Congress to fund a large-scale expedition to the South Pole to locate the elusive gateway to the underground. After the corresponding mission began in 1838, within the next 4 years, 50,000 samples were collected, but a sobering realization emerged. There was no trace of the eagerly sought-after entrance. Incredible reports. What followed in the next decades was the discovery of the Earth's core, the deciphering of density variations, the analysis of the magnetic field, and the examination of thermal balance. After these accumulated findings, the theory of a hollow Earth became obsolete. And we're not saying that the researcher models are wrong, we're just saying that the deepest drilling in history, at around 12 kilometers, barely scratches the surface. In 1908, American writer Willis George Emerson gained attention when he described something unbelievable in his book, The Smoky God. Allegedly based on a true incident, the story recounts how Norwegian Olaf Johnson sailed into a grotesque cave system near the North Pole in 1829. Completely overwhelmed, the seafarer discovered that his unreal passage led directly to the Earth's interior. But that's not all. Johnson supposedly spent several years in the company of the bizarre inhabitants of the underworld. He described his hosts as humanoid beings over 3 meters tall. The underground cities of this civilization, in turn, were illuminated by their own small sun. But are we really dealing with an authentic first-hand account here? Or is this just a prime example of a dubious sailor tale? The Forbidden Diary. A quick note beforehand. Officially, the diary frequently cited by alternative circles does not exist. Therefore, such a document is not mentioned in Richard Byrd's biographies. However, whether this also means that the records never really existed is a different matter altogether. After the Rear Admiral of the U.S. Navy had already completed several expeditions to Antarctica, an incident occurred in 1947 that would forever change Byrd's life. According to the controversial diary entry, Richard woke up on February 19th at 6 a.m. to prepare for the next research flight, as he often did. While initially, nothing indicated that this mission would significantly differ from all the previous ones, shortly after takeoff, an unexpected complication arose. Byrd noticed an oil leak in the engine, causing the aircraft to tumble violently. Instead of crashing to the ground, however, the plane flew into a sort of cave, revealing a mountain range that the seasoned polar explorer had never seen before. As if this discovery wasn't exciting enough, behind the mountains lay something that made the pilot doubt his sanity. A lush green forest that didn't seem to fit into the frosty scenery at all. And although Byrd could no longer see the sun, this surreal world appeared to be brightly illuminated. Furthermore, the diary states that the aircraft's systems failed. It seemed as if the plane was moving entirely on its own. After the aircraft gently landed on the ground, Byrd noticed a series of strange plants and unknown animals. However, he didn't have time to let the peculiar impressions sink in. Several aircraft quickly approached, from which awe-inspiring yet intimidating beings emerged. Essentially, the inhabitants resembled humans, but they were remarkably tall and pale, surrounded by a strange blue-green glow. And although the beings appeared quite intimidating, they were not hostile towards Byrd. In fact, they even invited the pilot to behold the underground realm of Argatha with his own eyes. In the heart of the underworld. According to the account, the inhabitants moved on platforms that seemed to float on their own. As all the buildings were made of radiant crystals, the city appears as a single sparkling diamond. Although Byrd was at a loss for words in the face of these overwhelming impressions, one thing was clear to him. He had encountered a civilization that far surpassed our own. Shortly thereafter, the guest from the surface world was led to the ruler of Argatha, whom he reverently referred to as the Master. During the meeting, Byrd learned that the hidden people had repeatedly attempted to establish contact with humans. However, as the surface dwellers always reacted aggressively and destroyed the aircraft sent to them, these efforts were abandoned. Instead, the beings of the underworld observed humanity from this hidden abode. Finally, Richard Byrd received a solemn warning. Our species had reached a critical tipping point. We were more willing to destroy our own home planet than to limit our power. The most important sentence from the ominous Master was as follows: I must tell you that a great and terrible wrath is building. A mighty storm will sweep over the land and rage for a long time. After the inhabitants of the underground world helped Byrd return to the surface, he immediately wrote down everything he had just experienced. Shortly thereafter, the polar explorer found himself in the Pentagon, where he recounted the incredible incident to the powerful men. As a result, he received strict orders never to speak about the encounter with the hidden civilization again. And as an obedient military personnel, Byrd did not disobey this directive. And with that, thank you very much for watching. Please feel free to hit the like and subscribe buttons to never miss one of our videos again. What do you think? Are Richard Byrd's diary entries authentic? Is it possible that a highly advanced civilization lurks beneath our feet?